Hey, it's NPR's Book of the Day. I'm Andrew Limbong. Porochista Khakpour's novel Tehrangeles is one of those novels that, satirizes and takes some shots at its subject. In this case, it's an extremely wealthy Iranian family with varying degrees of vapid self-centeredness who are on the cusp of landing their own reality TV show. Aspiring Kardashians is who we're talking about here. And like I said, it's easy to take shots at them, but she also takes these characters seriously and uses them as a way to look at things that say a lot more about the U.S. as a country. She talked to NPR's Ailsa Chang about interacting with these very types of people as a shop girl in Los Angeles and what's hiding under the Armani bags and Chanel sunglasses. That's ahead.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Live Right, publishers of White Poverty, How Exposing Myths About Race and Class Can Reconstruct American Democracy. Reverend William Barber and Jonathan Wilson Hartgrove envision how to unite millions of impoverished Americans. White Poverty, available now. This message comes from NPR sponsor Noom. Noom's first ever cookbook, The Noom Kitchen, helps you build new habits for a healthier lifestyle. Check out The Noom Kitchen for 100 healthy and delicious recipes to promote better living. Available to buy now wherever books are sold.
2 decades ago, author Porochista Khakpour was a Beverly Hills shop girl, and there were times a certain kind of customer would walk into her store, a wealthy Iranian who may have shared her blood and culture, but who inhabited a totally different world from her own.
They were the most impeccably dressed people you could imagine. I mean, all black, gold. Armani seemed to be the favorite. I mean, I would know the minute they walked in that they were one of my people. Yeah. I'm so not one of my people.
These people are now the main characters of her new novel called Tehrangeles. It zeroes in on an Iranian-American family whose massive wealth springs from a snack food empire. They're poised to star in a reality TV show, which is understandable given that they're one of the very richest families in California and a total hot mess. And somehow the narcissism, materialism, and phobias of these 4 daughters and their parents offer us a moving version of the Iranian-American story. Porochista Khakpour joins us now. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So let me ask you, when you were working at that store on Rodeo Drive, how much resentment versus envy did you feel for these obscenely wealthy Iranian customers who would walk in?
Well, first of all, I wasn't allowed to express anything in that store. We were Rodeo Drive shop girls, so we had to be very, we were wearing all black, very pleasant, almost scripted. But I would always initiate the conversation with these Iranians because I always had this bit of a sort of naive hope that maybe we could have a nice conversation. I'd always be excited to see Iranian-Americans. So I would often introduce myself or say, "ببخشید شما فارسی حرف میزنین," which is Persian for, "Excuse me, do you speak Farsi? Do you speak Persian?" And their reaction was often where things would go wrong.
What do you mean?
Because they were not very happy to realize that I was Iranian. I mean, they were used to Iranians on one side of the counter and I was on the wrong side of the counter.
I see. This feeling that you're describing, like, I'm not like those Iranians. You write that feeling, actually, into one of the sisters in this novel, Roxana, who literally tells people she is Italian, not Iranian. Like, she's the influencer, probably the messiest hot mess of all of them. What was Roxana trying to avoid, you think, by denying her Iranian-ness?
Well, on one hand, I think Roxana did something that's very relatable. I think almost every Iranian-American I know at some time, almost for their safety, has paused when around someone who's very xenophobic or racist. People are talking about terrorists or trying to tie Iranians to 9/11 or something silly like that. We've had a moment where we're like, okay, how do we hide? Are we Italian? Are we Greek? What can we be at this moment to veil ourselves, But like you said, Roxana is the hot messiest of all messes. I mean, she was so hard for me to write because she would just drive me crazy. I had such a love-hate thing with her.
And even her longtime boyfriend, Damon, who is Italian, totally believes that she is Italian. But it all made me think about what does it mean to be white in this country anyway? Because even Haley, the youngest sister, is pointing at her skin at one point and saying, we are white. Look at our skin. And haven't Iranians been classified automatically by the U.S. government as white in the census for like decades, which is going to change in 2030? But yeah, what do you think whiteness means in this country? Like how malleable this concept of whiteness is?
Yeah, so this is a big issue of mine that I've written about so much in my book, Brown Album. I think about this all the time. I mean, I grew up with a father that told me at a young age that we are brown and to be proud of that. And so I never had this conflict, even though, my skin is pale olive skin. I do have times when I have the privilege of passing and things like that, the double-edged privilege of passing, of course. Yeah. But there was a point where Iranians were not just saying they're white, but that was what the government saw us at. And yet there was this disconnect because Iranians weren't treated often like they were white. It was very different on the day-to-day level. And also, there were many times where there were lots of reminders that we were not white and that we would never be white.
Yeah, but not only does this book make me think about what is white, this book also made me think a lot about, what is American? Like Al, the patriarch, he is so utterly American in classic ways, like his love for money and ostentatiousness. His success is literally built on this like microwavable snack food that's like Cinnabon, but it's pizza. And, in so many ways, Al achieved the American dream as this immigrant from Iran in the most American way, right? And yet he never feels fully American.
Absolutely. I mean, Al was obsessed with assimilation at any cost. So for him, being American was what gave his life meaning. Yeah. So there's a purity in that. I mean, he comes from Iran. He's trying to establish himself. He has these humble roots, working at a pizza shop. He's trying his best. But I also found him so frustrating, because I felt like he was a very absent father even while he was around. But for him, he was just on this absolute other journey to become American. I think a lot of Iranian-Americans, when they come to America, they don't get a chance to be the perfect dad, the perfect mom. They're still in that sort of stunted development of like coming of age, no matter when they came to the U.S., because it's like you have to come of age all over again, but as an American.
Yeah. What does Tehrangeles represent to you? Like when people talk about the idea of a Tehrangeles in Los Angeles, what do you think they really mean? And how much does it bother you?
Well, I think a lot of people think of Tehrangeles as flash and trash and a sort of cheap, easy, glitzy glamour, and they see Iranians in their white BMWs or G-Wagons, and there's this like surface aesthetic. But I would argue, and I don't really get to in this book, is that I'm a Tehrangelino. I lived in the San Gabriel Valley, not that far away. There's people like me. Right. There's tons of us Iranian Americans in LA, but we never really got much visibility. And in my other books, I've addressed that. But in this book, I thought, let me just dive headfirst into the most visible, into the stereotype and see what can we do with that? What can we humanize and even say, okay, is there even a common ground? Is there even a point at which a really natural, organic empathy can come out of me and I can understand that? And I think, it actually took the pandemic as a setting for this book for me to get to that.
Porochista Khakpour's new novel is called Tehrangeles. So great talking to you, Porochista. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
This is my voice. It can tell you a lot about me, and I'm not changing it for anyone. In NPR's Black Stories, Black Truths, you'll find a collection of NPR episodes centered on the Black experience. Search NPR Black Stories, Black Truths wherever you get podcasts.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Allianz Travel Insurance. Whether you're planning a weekend away or an international adventure, All Trips annual travel insurance can protect every trip you take for the next 365 days. Get a quote at AllianzTravelInsurance.com. This message comes from NPR sponsor Vuori, a new perspective on performance apparel. Clothing designed with premium fabrics, built to move in, styled for life. For 20% off your first purchase, go to vuori.com/NPR.